Here.
Oh, excellent. I don't see any other commissioners. I'm looking, John.
Okay, so March 11th, 2021, Planning Commission meeting, 6:31 p.m.
Recording started.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone. I am going to read just a short preamble of the open meeting script. I, Dustin Brusso, as chair of the Essex Planning Commission, find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Scott as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Addendum 6 to Executive Order 01-20 and Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. There is a more detail to that script that is both posted on our website and is available from staff if anybody wants to see the whole thing. I would ask that if you're not speaking, if you can make sure that you've muted yourself. Hopefully we'll get reduce some of the carryover. So for tonight, before we get started, I am going to request. I'm going to do a roll call of the planning commissioners present. Start with myself, Dustin Brusso, present.
Joshua Knox, present.
Ned Daly, present.
Tom Ferland, present.
Dave Raphael, present.
John Mangan, present.
And Sharon, you can just announce if any of the others join us, you can please announce them. Before we get going, I'm going to administer the oath to the public. This will be for the entire meeting. Do you swear that any testimony you present this evening will be truthful to the best of your abilities? I'd like to hear just an acknowledgement, please.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I think that's the best that we can do in this situation. I thank you for your patience. So to begin with, we're going to start the meeting at this point with the section for public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of the Planning Commission or just present topics to the Planning Commission for items that are not on our agenda. So we have a little open spot. So if anyone from the public, again, let us know if you have any comments. You can use the hand raising feature in Teams. If you're not working from your computer, working from your phone, just try to let us know. Or you can also use the chat feature to let us know what's going on or that you have a question. So if anyone have any commentary for us? Hearing none, we'll move on to the second item on our agenda, which is a sketch public hearing for, I do apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce your names, Neges and Juanita Gutama. If I did poorly, I apologize. This is a proposal for a 4-unit, 5-lot planned unit development, PUDR, on a 37.8 acre parcel located at 137 Towers Road. Staff, who will be presenting on this?
That will be me, Darren Schibler. Thanks, Dusty. As you mentioned, this is a 4-unit, 5-lot planned unit development. The last lot is an open space lot of roughly 19.4 acres, I believe. Sorry if I got that wrong. 19.6 acres. And this is a sketch plan, which is the first of 3 steps of subdivision review. So this is a chance for us to take a broad look at the proposal, identify concerns that need to be addressed at a future stage, and make sure that it fits with the overall goals of the town plan and the zoning and meets the general standards of the zoning and subdivision regulations. So staff has extensive conversations with the applicant and the engineer about the design of this site. Overall, we feel that there is development potential here that could be accommodated in the regulations. We're not sure that this current proposal exactly meets that. There are a couple areas of concern. The first is that because this is in the Scenic Resource Overlay District, the applicants are allowed to propose a design where lots do not actually front on a public road in order to reduce impacts to scenic views from the roads, which is why they've used a shared driveway that runs towards the back. And I apologize, I should be sharing the plans here so you all can see what I'm talking about. So this is the overall site plan as an inset of the main plan. And let me know if you can't see that, if I need to zoom in a little more. So we have here the entire lot outlined in red in the back and the exterior, and there is an existing dwelling off an existing driveway here. So the proposal is 3 new lots, 1 existing lot, 4 houses, and then an open space lot to the east. So one more thing I should mention before I dive into all the details here. This is in a split zoning district. To the east is the low-density residential district, and the west is the agricultural residential district. So the Planning Commission has the discretion to apply the more restrictive of these zoning districts, depending on where the development is actually proposed and the site conditions present. As noted in the staff report, most of the development is proposed in the AR part of the lot and seems to fit more with that character of that zoning district. So we would recommend that those standards be applied. In truth, the only difference between them is the minimum lot size, which is 3 acres for the AR and 1 acre for the R1. And because this is a planned unit development, there's flexibility in the actual lot sizes based on hoping to cluster development and reduce impact on natural resources. So returning to the question about the Scenic Resource District and the ability to use a shared driveway, the applicants have done that, and the goal is, again, to reduce visual impacts. They've lined most of the houses up on the this little ridge here in the center of the lot, or the west part, the rear, with one tucked in the middle behind some existing landscaping and hedges. There are significant wetlands on the site. That's another factor into the design. And so again, this is allowed under the scenic resource standards. The area of concern is that this creates a relatively long driveway, over 900 feet, which is not allowed in the under the public works standards. A driveway that is serving more than 2 residential units has some limitations on how long it can be, which is 300 feet for a dead-end road and 750 feet for a looped access. So the Public Works wrote in their review that this driveway would need to be reduced in length or looped. And they did propose a design that would allow for that to happen and allow for this development to mostly go forward as proposed, although Lot 4 to the north would have to come closer to the other existing, or the other dwellings here. So that's one area of concern. And the other area of concern is that under conventional subdivision, as opposed to planned unit development, 3 lots could be accommodated with the frontage that is provided or allowed existing on this lot. The applicants are requesting a reduced frontage in consideration of creative design under the planned unit development standards. And they have met the requirement for an open space lot that includes most of the protected or most of the sensitive natural resources on the site. But again, there's a question of whether this design is clustered enough to qualify as a planned unit development. So those are the issues we wanted to hear from the Planning Commission about. And I will note that from the original design, the applicants have proposed some changes to the driveway that would meet the public safety concerns from Public Works and the fire department. So there would be, it would be a 20-foot drive for most of it. It would transition to 15 feet after the second dwelling, and there would be pull-offs for emergency vehicles. But there's still a concern that this is just too long, and if any blockage were to happen along this road, vehicles wouldn't be able to get further in. And it's simply just a larger impact on site than if those lots were clustered.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
I've got one question. Is this on town water or well water?
These would be on private, individual drilled wells and septic systems. There might actually be some shared septic, I believe, depending on site conditions. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug.
That's potential, yes, you're right. We haven't really explored on-site wastewater options quite yet until we get through sketch plan, and then that'll be our next step.
Okay, so that means sprinklers are not an option. Is that correct?
Not a good option.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anything else, Tom?
Nope, that's it.
Any other commissioners? Any other commissioners' questions at this stage? Okay. Just as a reminder, as was mentioned, this is sketch, so this is where we're starting to do an overview and get big ticket items and so forth. So we keep that in mind as we go forward. I'm going to shift over to the applicant, and I'm assuming, Doug, you're going to be presenting on this.
Correct.
So give us any exceptions you take to the staff report and any high points that you'd like to present to us.
Okay. Well, I think Darren did a good overall job giving a basic input. I wanted to polish it a little bit with a few other details. I guess I want to first give everybody some insight as to why the plan looks like it does as far as lot layout and house layout. Darren, maybe if you put the site plan back up as I chat here.
Can you see that, Doug?
Yeah, I know what it looks like, so it's up to the other folks if they can see it.
And let me know if you need me to zoom in or point anything out.
Okay, appreciate it. So as Darren said, I think starting right off, there are two main topics here, whether everyone feels that this layout is clustered enough to meet the goals of the PRD regulations. And secondly, we want to talk about the shared access and how that meets the regulations. So again, as I said, I want to quickly go through how we came to this layout. The property only has about 500 feet of frontage, but it has 37 acres, so it's kind of got a disproportionately small amount of frontage. And what frontage it has along Towers Road is primarily all wetlands. So we really don't have many options but to develop toward the north internally, as opposed to stringing lots out along the frontage of Towers Road. And again, to do as Darren suggested, to do a conventional subdivision in the AR zoning districts, it's 200 feet of frontage, so we would only have two lots, the existing house and one additional lot. So again, that's driven us in the direction of a PRD because two lots seems to be underutilizing this property. So the coming in is an existing long driveway, about the first 300 feet. Maybe you zoom in a little bit, Darren, please. The first 300 feet runs adjacent to the Johnson property to the east. And to the west, there's wetlands and the mound system serving the existing house. So really no development potential for that first 300 feet, which gets you to about the driveway of Lot 1, as we show it there. Lot 1 sits in a nice little open meadow facing easterly, sloping to the east, and it's 2.1 acres. Again, we need to create these lot areas so we have some space for drilled wells and hopefully on-site septic systems. The soils out here are not great. They're heavy, so the likelihood of a mound system is great, which is what most of the folks around here have. Once you get past Lot 1, you're still following the existing driveway to the Gutama's house. It crosses a small brook, and associated with that, there are wetlands. So the proposed shared drive would angle to the right, where Darren's cursor is, and go out into an open meadow. And we tried to as we crossed lot two being the lot that incorporates the existing house, try to reach a happy medium between keeping some front yard to the house and not putting this shared driveway in the wetlands to the west. So that's why it's positioned where it is, to try to reach that sweet spot. At that point, we have the lots 3 and 4 proposed. Lot 3 is 2.1 acres. Lot 4 is 3.9 acres and extends to the very northerly boundary of the property. Again, we've got wetlands to the right side or east side of the lots. The big dashed line that you see there is actually the zoning line, but the wetland boundary is close to that. The houses spacing is about 100 feet between the existing house and the new houses on lot 3 and 4. And again, the lots are sized to try to anticipate and be large enough for wells, mound systems, and the isolation distances that are required between them. So that's sort of the background of why it looks like it does at this point. I would like to point out in the staff report that the staff did an analysis. The surrounding density in a half a mile radius is 1 dwelling per 5.3 acres. So the new lots we're creating, lots 1, 3, and 4, average 2.7 acres. So we're at twice the density of the existing homes within a half mile radius. So for us, we think that's a good demonstration of clustering when we're twice as dense as the neighboring geography in this area. Want to move to the shared driveway discussion. I produced, I'm sure it's in your packet, a letter February 5th, very long-winded, 2 or 3 pages, explaining all the reasons why a shared driveway is appropriate for this property, as opposed to a public road or a private road. And I want to quickly touch on just the highlights of that. First of all, as Darren suggested, the shared driveway, the SRPO, the overlay district regulations specifically encourage the use of a shared driveway to serve up to 4 lots. This proposal proposes to utilize a combination of a type A and a type B driveway, which are found in the public works specs to serve this project. So the type B driveway is specifically designed to serve 3 to 4 dwellings. So that cross section would be proposed up to the first 2 driveways. Beyond that, it could drop to a type A driveway, which is narrower and would serve the last 2 houses. So type B driveway is 22 feet wide, which comes out to 2 10-foot lanes and a 1-foot shoulder on either side. That detail in the public works specs also includes recommendations for pull-offs for driveways more than 900 feet. So this clearly acknowledges that shared driveways can be longer than 900 feet. We're not talking about a town road that does have limitations. This is not a town road, not a private road, it's a shared driveway. So as Darren pointed to on the plan, we are proposing pull-offs and an emergency turnaround near the end of the shared driveway, which would bring it in compliance with typical driveway B detail. I want to quickly go through not too many comments on the staff report. There's a lot in here. I don't want to spend too much time. Just a couple things. The table on page 3 is just a little typo. It has proposed lot 4 being 3.9 acre. Has it shown as 2.1 when it should be 3.9. So I think that's just a typo.
Yep.
I want to jump to line 165 on page 6. Top of the page, we have not seen any documentation from the fire chief or the town engineer that states that the proposed access is not safe or reliable enough to sufficiently serve the residents and emergency vehicles. If we're missing some documentation from those folks, we haven't seen it. Again, we're proposing a type B driveway right out of the public works specs. This shared driveway will be designed to comply with the details found in the specs. And this detail is specific to driveways serving 3 or 4 dwellings. So if Public Works feels it's not safe, I guess they're telling us their Public Works specs are poorly designed. In other words, we are following the Public Works specs with this type B driveway for widths, for lengths, for everything, pull-offs and such. So we don't understand that comment about how it can be unsafe when we're following their own Public Works own rules and regulations. Line 175 to 177 keeps talking about the driveway issue. Town engineer acknowledges actually that a type B shared driveway is correct for driveways serving 3 or 4 dwellings. However, he goes on to discuss how any future accessory dwelling units, I'm going to call them ADUs, would change the number of dwellings served. So in our opinion, this is just flawed logic, and this argument could be used on any residential project in Essex. As an example, if a project outside of the SRPO proposed, say, 2 new single-family homes on a shared driveway, would Public Works recommend that they build it to town road standards because potentially there could be 4 dwelling units on that road if each house had its own ADU? So we've never encountered this comment, and it just doesn't seem, we don't know why it would be specific to this project and why it couldn't be applied to any project proposing single-family homes, that anybody can have an ADU. So we just don't really understand that logic, and just don't think it's applicable to this discussion about a roadway. Secondly, if you look at the definition of an ADU, it states that residential density requirements do not apply to accessory dwellings. So if an ADU isn't counted as a dwelling unit when computing density, why should it be counted for roadway or driveway design? It's just inappropriate in our opinion. Having said that, if the Planning Commission feels that ADUs should be under consideration for this project, the applicants would be more than willing to, by either deed covenant or other means, put a restriction on the ability to construct ADUs on these 3 new homes, or we could limit the amount of bedrooms in the homes by covenant. We could limit the sewer capacity by covenant. There are many ways we could limit the ability for a house to add on to an equivalent ADU. But again, we don't think that's necessary for this project or any project to consider ADUs in the design. Almost done here. Line 181 suggests that a type A paved rural road may be appropriate given this ADU scenario. Well, we point out that a type A paved road is 32 feet wide in the town of Essex compared to a 22-foot wide type B shared driveway, which is proposed. So a type A rural road 32 feet wide is clearly in direct conflict with the recommendations of the SRPO, which encourages access roads and drives to be kept to a minimum width. So again, the recommendations of the town engineer don't really jive with the goals of the SRPO. And just for comparison, the applicants went out and measured Towers Road in front of their house, and it's 23 feet wide from shoulder to shoulder. So to consider a new road that's 32 feet wide, serving 4 homes, and is 9 feet wider than the existing Towers Road, again, doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to us. So that's it. I'm going to stop there and take comments and listen.
Excellent. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, it looks like Darren has something before we go to the commission. Darren?
If it's okay, Dusty, I just want to provide a couple points of clarification on what Doug spoke to, which is stuff we've discussed with the applicant and with Doug before. So one of the questions was about the ability to restrict development of future ADUs with covenants. This is specifically not allowed under state law, and that was passed last year, and there is a bill in the on the floor right now of, I believe, the House or the Senate that would clarify that the restrictions do specifically apply to ADUs and not. So, staff questions the ability to legally allow, a project to not have those ADUs in the future because we do want to limit the number of homes on this driveway. So for us, it's kind of an all or nothing. The number of single units determines the number of ADUs. And on the Type B driveway, my understanding from the town engineer was that this was designed to serve 2 single-unit dwellings within the scenic resource overlay district. It was created after those standards were put into place. The idea being these 2 units would be on a shared driveway and could each have an ADU, so a total of 4 units. So again, given the fact that this could have 8 units in total on the driveway, that's where the concern from Public Works came from, was now you're talking about a road that has 8 units. Is it still fitting the Type B standard? And again, because we can't restrict the number of units with ADUs, we have to assume that that's going to happen at some point. And then the last question, again, just to reiterate that we're not trying to provide or deprive the applicants of the ability to develop this lot as a conventional subdivision. There still would be the road issue, and that's something we should address. But we also want to raise the question of what benefit this PUD provides in terms of going above and beyond the design that's normally required for subdivisions.
Okay, Darren, thanks. Commissioners, I see Ned, you've got your hand up. Questions for staff or applicant?
The question is actually probably a little more for Darren. He seems to get off on a track about preserving the farmland and all. I'm not sure, if the farmland is strictly some hay fields or is it for growing crops or something? And you talk about. Can you give us a little background on how you got off onto this tangent, so to speak, as opposed to the plan that we're looking at?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the reason I looked into that was because of the planned unit development goals and the goals of the agricultural residential district, which are to protect agricultural lands and their productivity. So in looking at what makes this proposed PUD special and what would make it really go above and beyond a conventional design, I looked at the goals of the district and said, how would this be protecting agricultural land? And found, they are certainly reserving that 19.6 acre open space lot, which is great. But I did wonder if they could tighten up the the lots a little bit to allow that entire field to be retained, whether it's for what it's currently used now, which I believe is a hay field, but I guess correct me if I'm wrong, or whether it's, feel free to chime in. But the point is that, we wanted to try and protect the agricultural viability of that lot and of that area.
Okay.
I guess, do you want to comment on that, or I could comment on that just briefly?
Ed, want
Go
to
ahead,
lower your
Doug.
hand?
Yes, I can add in if we need to.
Well, I would just add that it really isn't of agricultural value. It's mainly wetland, and it's usually about one time of the year in the fall that they can get out there and just brush hog it. It's not used for sale of hay or anything. It's just to keep the trees down. So it has very little ag value, but certainly protecting it as open space and maybe letting it revegetate. Certainly the wetlands folks would be thrilled with that, because there's more habitat and such, which is conducive to wetland species and such when you start getting more mature vegetation than just short grasses and such. So I think conserving 20 acres is a good thing. And I don't think it would be harming the ag value of the property as it is now, because there really isn't much of any ag value to speak of. I guess, is that a true statement?
Yeah. Just like, I'm sorry, like you said, that we kept that area clear for a while, as long as we've been there, just to keep the brush down. Maybe a couple of times there was hate, just because we had that free opportunity. But other than that, even the hay guys didn't want to do it. So I brush hogged it. That's all. And that, like you said, it's wet, and it won't do anything, and it's just sit there. So that's what it is.
Okay, thank you. Ned, your hand is still up. Do you have more, or are we just
No.
distracting me?
Go back to Tom. He's got his hand up.
Well, you can put your hand down then. Tom, go ahead.
Not do that. I just.
So, Darren, I just want to verify your comment. You said that the driveway standard for 4 units was really 2 single families plus 2 ADUs. That's what the Public Works was assuming.
Correct.
So
that's my understanding.
Okay, so where are we in terms of assuming ADUs and across all the zoning zones and decisions and how we calculate things?
So we would assume that for any single unit dwelling that is permitted, there could be an ADU permitted. So let's say there is a existing shared driveway with 2 single unit dwellings. If there were ADUs added to one or both, my understanding is they would be required to upgrade the driveway. I may be incorrect in that, so this might be worth clarifying with Aaron, but that seems to be why they implemented the standard to begin with, because it was, my understanding was this was after the scenic resource standards were adopted as a response to make sure that those shared driveways that were proposed in that area would be adequate.
Okay, let me rephrase my question a bit. So since the law says ADUs don't count towards density, is the only aspect of zoning where we have to consider ADUs in driveway standards, or are there other things where an ADU might affect whether it conforms or doesn't conform to a zoning regulation?
Mm-hmm. So the law does specifically say it doesn't count towards the density requirements. The idea being that not to artificially restrict the ability to develop an area that could, or a unit that has a minimal impact. But the town engineer's perspective is still that you have to provide safe access and adequate access that's going to be durable over many years if you're going to have the extra traffic that comes from having an additional unit. And the ability to serve with fire and emergency services with extra units, extra people living there. And again, this is coming from town engineer and public and fire department.
Okay, and so what about limiting the bedrooms, as Doug suggested?
Again, the law does specifically say that no zoning regulation shall have the effect of limiting the development of ADUs. I'm not sure if bedrooms would count for that. And one of the things we talk about in the staff report is that, you know, if this moves forward, we would like to get a legal opinion as to if and how there could be any restrictions on ADUs in a situation like this, because the way staff interprets the law right now is that we wouldn't. It would have the effect of prohibiting, but we can seek clarification on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Doug, you have additional commentary?
Yeah, just briefly. All we can do as engineers is read the letter of the law, and the type B driveway says the type B standard driveway section is to be used for driveways serving 3 to 4 dwellings. I'm not talking about dwelling units, doesn't mention ADUs. I think we're rewriting, Public Works is trying to rewrite history. I agree that they developed this standard when the SRPO overlay district said you could have as many as 4 dwellings on a single driveway to reduce visual impacts and such. So that's why they generated this detail to say, it's wider than the type A driveway. It's requiring pull-offs. It can be longer than 900 feet. They put all sorts of criteria in to acknowledge that it's going to be a beefier road because it serves 3 to 4 dwellings. To try to interpret 3 to 4 dwellings as, it's only means 2 houses with 2 ADUs, I think is a real stretch. That's not what it says. And I think, I don't know, I've said enough, but
Okay.
that's not the intent.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Oiso.
Hi, I just wanted to point out that there's still the PUD threshold that has to be met about whether this actually meets the qualifications for a planned unit development. And I just don't want that to get lost in the conversation about number of houses on a driveway, because it's a really important part of zoning.
Okay. Thank you. Doug, your hand is still up. Did you want more to add more?
Sorry, I didn't mean to be up, but I will add just one more too. Oiso's comment. We did never miss an opportunity to talk, right? We did do a density analysis, and this lot would support up to 11 dwelling units. So I think the appropriateness of 3 new houses versus 11 residential dwelling units is telling that we're not certainly overdeveloping this property by any means. It's a very modest project, and we're limiting lot sizes, as I said before, to half the current density in the area. Okay. So I'm going to put my hand down now.
Oiso, your hand is still up. Did you have more that you want to add?
Yes, I put my hand back up because a conventional subdivision would allow you 2 units on that property. Planned unit development is not, it's not an as of right condition. And it really is for a certain type of development that we're hoping to have in Essex. And again, I'm just asking the Planning Commission to consider whether or not the location of the physical location of these houses on this site meet the requirements for clustering. And I respect the units per acre, but density is completely separate from clustering.
Okay, thank you. Tom.
Well, I guess Oiso answered my question, whether you really could put 11 units on here with all the wetlands and the road frontage issue.
Okay. I want to bounce on the rest of the commissioners who haven't had a chance to chime in yet. Does anyone have any questions before I request that we open the public hearing?
I got a quick one, Dustin.
Go for it.
Doug, in the staff report, the section that was sort of referring to the length of the driveway and the Vermont Conservation Design, which we haven't officially adopted. I'm in the staff report. It's saying about alternative mitigation strategies. Is that something that you guys would be willing to entertain, address? Think about ways to have less impact on the wetlands with the way the driveway cuts through there? Certainly.
We know to put that driveway in, we will be impacting wetlands and or wetland buffers. So we know we're going to need a Vermont state wetland permit. So because of that, we don't have a choice but to minimize wetland impacts every way we can because they'll require it. Historically dealing with wetlands, if they saw a 32-foot wide road there and knew that we could do a 22-foot wide road, they'd really be pushing hard to have the town justify why we were impacting wetlands to a greater degree than what we have to if the SRPO is supportive, which it is, supportive of narrower roads, not wider roads. So we feel like we've gotten, to be honest with you, torqued around quite a bit here with these regulations.
Don't get torqued yet. Let's get through the discussions first. Hold on before we let's get through it before we get too far up yet.
So to answer your question, we absolutely will have conservation in mind, and minimizing wetland impacts will be a requirement, not just a desire.
Let's keep the conversations going. And David, John Mangan, or Josh, any comments? Any questions?
I'm good.
Yeah, mine were already answered by others. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm mulling the driveway issue and the clusteriness, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. With that, I would like a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Moved by Josh, seconded by Shu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Where are we at? 7-0. So folks, the public hearing at this point is open. I'd like to still follow the same orders that we've been doing with the Planning Commission. And if you can raise your hand using the tool and the Teams to raise your hand, and then I will recognize you and you can ask questions of the commission, and we will reach out to staff or applicant as needed. All right, everybody take your turn. No rush, no pressure.
Looks
All right.
like Nancy is speaking, but you might still be muted, Nancy.
So you're on mute.
Nancy, your microphone is off. You need to unmute.
And if you're having trouble finding that, if you're in Teams, there should be a little microphone towards either the top of the screen or in the middle.
I'm fine. Go ahead.
All right, well, Nancy's working on that. Sharon Zukowski has her hand raised. Sharon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, good. I did have a comment about the dwelling thing, because I know in the Vermont statutes, an accessory dwelling, is that an ADU, an accessory dwelling? An ADU is considered a dwelling. So you can't just say a home, which could possibly have another attachment, is one dwelling if there's two things. So, you could say a 4-unit is a dwelling. So I'm thinking the possibility of an ADU means if you had, how many houses are there? 4 or 3?
The proposal is for.
Anyway, it would double the amount. It would double the amount of possible houses, dwellings that are possible on that road. Anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's reflected in the staff report as well. On line 179.
Thanks.
Gotcha. Sharon, if you can put your hand down if you're all set. Okay, great. Nancy, you were looking like you were trying to talk before. Are you still trying to connect to us? Somewhere there's an icon to turn your mic on.
Nancy, if you're using a browser, it should be towards the top of your screen. And there's a little camera, there's a microphone icon, and if you click that, that should turn it on. I'm going to see if I can try to unmute you, but I don't think I have the ability to do that. If this doesn't work out,
be able to just press her space bar, I believe, as long as the window's active.
Yep. You can also try Control Shift and M, Nancy, on your keyboard there. Oh, let's go ahead and try that now. It says that there's 2 Nancys here. Your video is Nancy parentheses guest.
Looks like you just went to another desk. Perfect. They're both still muted.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. My question is for the driveway. Would that be widening the existing driveway as it sits right now?
Darren?
Nancy, I believe if the regardless, the driveway would be widened. Part of the question is how much. And I know we spoke earlier, so I think your concern was about in which direction it would be widened, whether it would be towards your property or away from it. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
And I would defer to Doug on that in terms of the design.
Yeah, to be honest with you, we haven't looked that far into the future, but we know there are wetlands on the left-hand side and the road ditch and all, so, but I know it's also limited to the right-hand side with the Johnson's landscaping and all, so it'd probably be a combination of widening on both sides if I had to guess right now to make that happen.
My concern are the trees that we were required to put in when we put in our property. And they, because of the root system, I would be concerned that that would be disturbed if you move it any more to the right. Because I don't want to have to, replace the trees that I'm required by the town to have there. And they've been in since 1984, so they probably have a fairly decent root system. And I'm not even sure where our property line is there. I know the trees are on our side, but I don't know exactly where the line is. The other concern is since the existing driveway was put in, our driveway floods every time there's a rain. So I would be concerned that, that somehow we don't get, in any worse situation than we're already in. I mean, you can't walk out there. Luckily, we park our cars in the garage, so we drive out, but you could never walk in our driveway after a rain. And that only happened after the asphalt was put in. So that's a concern, and a little bit concerned about how close the one house, the first house looks, next to our property. Obviously, we purchased out there because they were 10-acre minimum lots when we purchased. So we moved out of a development, and we really don't want to be put in a development at this point in our lives. So those are our concerns at this point.
Thank you. Doug, did you want to respond? You're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, we will take your concerns into consideration. If we move forward with a roadway design, again, hopefully we land on a 22-foot wide road and not a 32-foot wide road, which would obviously make a huge difference in the infrastructure that would need to be constructed. And similarly, we were sympathetic to your property and only propose one house behind your property. I think there are suggestions that, with a more clustered design that maybe more homes could be put in that one single lot, because we really are restricted right there between your property and a wetland boundary. We've got about 120 feet. So we think a good design is one house there. Staff may feel that clustering could put 2 or 3 homes there. So I'm glad you voiced your opinion that you're not even too happy with one, but there could be more.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other members of the public that would like to offer comment? Now, Nancy, it looks like you took Les's chair. Does he want it back, and does he want to jump in? All right, we'll move on. I'm going to bring this back to the commission at this point. I'm not going to ask to close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this point? It feels like we have really 2 issues to to come to some conclusion on for this, again, sketch plan hearing. One is, does this qualify as a PUD? And two, the length of the road. So I'm really thinking that's, at least as far as sketch goes, those are our two primaries to sort of come up with some direction on. What are your thoughts? Ned, I'm going to start with you.
My prime thought at the last resident that spoke is, the concern with the driveway. I'm not sure if we increase the density there, we help that situation at all, given the closeness to the wetlands. So I think the drive and whether it's a Class B or how it gets worked out is probably the prime consideration. I don't have a lot of issues with the 4 units, the 4 lots, and the way they've been laid out.
Okay, thanks, Ned. Shu, what are your thoughts at this point?
I guess I hadn't really given a huge amount of thought to the driveway, other than the fact that it is cutting through a lot of wetland, and Doug is right. He's going to have to go through. They're going to have to go through some serious hoops to do what they want to do there. Yeah, I'm not sure how comfortable I am so far about whether it meets the PUD criteria or just the spirit of it in general. But that's about all I have for a comment right now.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
I like the layout. I like the fact that they're all in a row. My biggest concern, I think, is Owiso's comment about whether it can be a PUD, and I don't offhand know what the issue is. But I wouldn't want to make a precedent that, people can bend the rules.
Okay. Josh?
So read the 2 issues. With respect to the impact of the ADUs on the access, what I'm kind of thinking is the condition, excuse me, in the staff report, it says, at best, the town could require as a condition of approval that the road be upgraded before allowing the development of such ADUs, but this may not be legally possible given that such and such VSA prohibits municipalities from enacting bylaws that have the effect of prohibiting ADUs. I would definitely, as it says here, want to know what the town attorney does think of that, because that seems to me the sort of obvious solution, because otherwise we're sort of risking, like, this hypothetically could be this many, so we're going to treat it like this many. And I don't recall, this I think was Tom's question earlier, I don't recall how often we've done that. And if we could just say, well, when you add ADUs, then it becomes large enough, the road needs to be upgraded. That seems to me the easiest way out. On the other issue of whether this is clustery enough, I mean, every time we have one of these, I kind of struggle with the spirit of the law, letter of the law thing. And I don't know that I've resolved it with respect to this one yet. So I suppose we'll see it again.
Okay.
That's what I got.
Gotcha. Mr. Mangan?
Yeah, I'm certainly no expert in PUD, so we need some assistance, I think, in trying to figure that out. I can appreciate a lot of what Doug said, though. I mean, if he is building stuff according to what the spec reads, where are we, what right are we in to say you can't, it's wrong. So I think that requires some additional thought as well.
Okay. David?
No issues with the layout. I tend to agree with Doug. Any other time we've considered driveways and multiple dwellings. We've never entered into the ADU discussion. 117 is pretty clear. It has a line in it that says, bylaw may require a single-family dwelling with an accessory dwelling unit to be subject to the same review, dimensional, or other controls as required for a single-family dwelling without an accessory dwelling unit. So I would like, if we move forward, just to get a legal opinion that says, hey, can we put a restriction that says if they add an ADU that we get to relook at the driveway situation? But all in all, no issues with the layout, no issues with the density. I kind of agree that this is in fitting with the character of the area.
Okay, thank you. Darren Awiso, I've gotten the impression that Public Works is standing on this pretty firmly. What does it mean what does it mean to this application if we don't accept their recommendation or we put it through us as it is stated now? So I want to understand what is the impact to this application as it goes through life, or it goes through the next few iterations if Public Works does not support this.
I would like to get, this is Darren, I'd like to get Aaron to speak to that a little more, knowing the commission's general feeling on this. I think one of the biggest concerns, and Tom alluded to this, is that, this is going to set some precedent. This is one of the first real subdivisions we've had in Scenic Resource District that has this shared driveway layout. So we'd want to make sure that we are setting the right precedent and clarifying what is intended and what isn't. And I do know, all I can say is that Aaron did have some significant concerns about having up to 8 units on this driveway design. And he felt that it was not meeting the intent of what was designed for in the specs. So I think if the commission would like to delve into that further, we can ask for some further information from Public Works as to what the specific concerns are and what they would suggest. And I will say, as I mentioned earlier, they did suggest a looped road that would have gone, as Doug said, a little more into the Gutama's existing front yard. So I can understand the not wanting to do that because it would create a little more disturbance to their house. But Aaron did suggest a design that he felt would meet the specs and would meet the standards and would not significantly alter the layout for maybe a one dwelling. But
okay, David, I'll get back to you in a minute. One further question is, we keep mentioning the scenic resource and so forth. So just sort of in a summation, how does this layout meet our scenic resource designs? Because that was a very hot topic for quite some time. So let's weigh the balance. What are we getting versus what are we giving up, sort of thing.
Yep. So the design does keep development away from the open meadows, most of which are wetland on this property, which is one of the goals of the Scenic Resource District. It does locate dwellings on the edges of forested areas or trees so that there is minimal visual impact from the road. It does, unfortunately, one provision within the Scenic Resource Standards that does allow for this shared driveway scenario does say, provided that it meets public safety concerns. And I know that in particular was a phrase that was debated. This was before my time here, but I know that was contentious during the review of those standards. And that's where Public Works has raised the concern about, it's not meeting the specs. The specs are intended to be the safety standards, so there's concern that it wouldn't.
David, you had something else?
I was just struggling a little bit with, this is, maybe it's just because the ADUs are fairly new, but I guess I'm just struggling. I mean, I know that the statute says that there has to be sufficient wastewater capacity. We just have never talked about other subdivisions in terms of their what-if potential for adding ADU. So I guess I kind of want to, maybe this is new learning for me and everybody on how this is impacting all of our discussions, because I can think of just so many instances where even a two dwellings sharing a driveway, we've never then said, oh, well, what if there's two ADUs added and now all of a sudden there's, 6 cars or 4? I mean, so I'm just struggling a little bit with some of this.
I think from my perspective is, if you've mentioned in the staff report that if it went forward, you'd be going to the town attorney for some return. I'd like to actually table the ADU question to, just ignore it for tonight, because I don't think we know enough to really weigh in on it.
Yeah.
I do think we have the legitimate questions or options to discuss whether or not, what the scenic resource impact are, what the road length might be, and does this really fit as a PRD or PUD, whatever we want to call it, XYZ. I'm almost, my opinion is that I think we need to get to some position of consensus with Public Works regardless. I don't know that we need to reject anything. I think I'd personally like to see this go forward to the next level and get into some engineering and get Public Works on board with the applicant and work out something that fits. It may not be exactly what Public Works is saying has to be right now, but I've got to think that they can do this. There's a lot of options that can be flown back and forth, and it's either stay at this level and continue the sketch and come back with something more, or push it up to the next one. And I haven't heard a lot of hesitation from the commissioners so far about the application in general. I mean, am I missing something from commissioners?
I don't think so.
I want to hear from Owiso first, and
we'll get to
why it's not a PUD.
Yeah. I'm circling with the commissioners right now. We'll bring staff in and put them on the hook in a moment.
The other small comment I have is the lot sizes don't meet, and it seems like it'd be easy enough to make the lots extend into the wetland and meet the requirements.
Okay. Owiso, you're up.
So I don't know whether this is appropriate to ask, but speaking to sort of what you just brought up, Dusty, about Public Works' concerns, I wondered if the applicants can tell us whether there was any merit at all to the discussions that they had or the plans that were shown to them by Public Works. Was it a minor inconvenience that the driveway was located? I mean, I have not seen the plans. But what is it, a minor inconvenience that the driveway would be located in a way that would work for them, or is it something that you could work with? I mean, it may not be your number one choice, but I'm just wondering if there's any sort of space between, because Public Works did come in hard on this, and I wish a representative from Public Works were here right now.
Doug, do you want to respond?
Well, I'm not sure, Public Works came in hard on this, so to speak. I spoke with Aaron early on, and he said, I'm fine with 3 to 4 on a shared driveway. It's just, what if somebody adds an ADU, and I've never heard that in any discussion, in any project. Threw me for kind of a loop. And as some of the commissioners said, this is just a precedent that on every project, doesn't matter whether it's in the SRP or not, is a single family house considered 2 units now. If you always consider an ADU can only be 30%. I mean, the rules, and it's not a duplex. But to address Owiso's concern, yeah, it's a big deal. Aaron on a kind of scratched out a little cul-de-sac design that took up the entire front yard of the Gudema's front yard. Public Works specs are, I think, 50-foot radius cul-de-sacs. They're huge.
Okay.
And if he was suggesting that it be a town road, then we're 24 feet plus shoulders. It probably might kill the project if we had to build a town road in to serve 4 houses. with the wetlands concerns and everything else. It's just Public Works isn't taking into consideration the goals of the SRPO in that infrastructure is minimized. So we're faced with trying to design something that is big and fat and wide for Public Works, but narrow for the SRPO regs. And we've been struggling for 2 months with this, and it's not easy. Getting an answer to the ADO would help, but it's a town road with a cul-de-sac and such is potentially a project killer, to be honest with you.
So let's hold on the road. Let's circle back into Louisa. I would like you on this, and I know your hands up, Darren and Sharon, but I want to circle onto the question of PUD. Does this fit? So let's hammer on that a little bit, and then we'll circle back to the road a little bit, and then we'll decide where we want to roll with this, because we can hammer this all night, but we obviously don't have enough information to, I believe, make clear decisions on all elements. The question before us is there enough in order to advance this as a sketch, advance this to preliminary? And that's, we got to remember, we're not trying to get to the engineering details yet. We're trying to get whether or not we agree with the project. So let's bring up, because it was brought up early on, whether or not this qualifies as a PUD. Let's toss that around a little bit. Louisa?
My sense is that it reads as a subdivision. It's just not a subdivision because it's using the PUD exception. And the PUD exception is for clustering and for projects that provide some public benefit. So those are my questions. Is it clustered enough for you? Does it cluster enough to pass the straight face test of what clustered is? I mean, clustered is based on the relationship of the buildings to each other. That's what clustering is. And doesn't meet that.
Okay. Darren?
I have to remember to unmute. So I wanted to add to that there are a couple other examples that the Commission has seen in recent years of PUDs that maybe had the similar question in mind about what is clustering. One is the Smokebush Lane development at 50 Chapin Road, which is relatively close to the project. It's in the R1 zone, just off of Chapin Road, north of where it intersects Towers. That was basically three duplexes and a detached single unit, all within a relatively clustered site. And the Commission was very supportive of that coming forward as a PUD. And in contrast, there have been a couple of projects on Brigham Hill Road that came in originally as PUDs that were essentially houses strung along a long driveway, and were asking for the same flexibility on frontage because the lots were longer, but only had the minimum frontage for the AR district. And the Commission also, and one of them also had wetlands issues that the Commission felt maybe didn't qualify it as a PUD. So those were not supported as PUDs. And one of them came back as a conventional subdivision. The other one has not yet returned to the Commission's table. So I just want to point to those examples as part of your approval or your case law on this, so to speak.
Okay. So let's bounce that around the Commission. Commissioners, in general, do you feel that this meets a PUD proposal at this level? Let's take this. Let's decide. I mean, we're deciding whether or not we want this to move forward to preliminary. So we're not engineering yet, but we're trying to get the basic concepts. Let's go down the list. Shu.
Yeah, I have a question back to you, Darren. You just listed off a pretty good bit of examples. How many of those were actually like in an AR district? Those would sound like they were mostly R1.
The two Brigham Hill Road examples were in the AR district. So one was 101 Brigham Hill Road. That was a 2-lot PUD that had lots stacked behind each other, so flag lots essentially. And originally, they then came in with splitting the frontage 100 feet and 100 feet. And the commission felt that that wasn't necessarily clustered enough and it didn't provide enough open space to really be functional. That's maybe not the case for this. The open space isn't an issue for this project, but there was a concern about circumventing the frontage requirements simply by calling it a PUD. The other example was Goodrich Lane. I believe that originally came as a planned unit development, but there were concerns about wetland impacts, and so they ended up doing a conventional PUD or conventional subdivision and got their wetlands permits.
Okay, thanks.
John, can I have a follow-up to your question?
Mm-hmm.
Have we, Darren, have we had any PUDs come in with the scenic resource? Is this the first one where we've had both things layered on it?
This is the first PUD that is in the Scenic Resource Overlay District. The 101 Brigham Hill Road is not in the Scenic Resource District, but it was identified in the town plan as a scenic area. So we didn't apply the exact same standards, but we used that as guidance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to our list. Go ahead.
Can I just remind folks, since we're talking about, PUDs and some of the struggles we've had, the Morse Old Stage Road one where we went back and forth on clustered versus non-clustered, and we ended up with lots with 2 dwellings per shared drive. We ended up with basically not clustering.
Yep. Okay, so let's continue up the list. Tom.
I think it's a gray area whether it's clustered. I do like it from a scenic resource perspective. So,
I think, yeah, we wanted to, yeah, okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Josh.
I think you named it, Dusty, when you said the fact that this one's in the scenic resource changes it a little bit on how do we meet that objective as well, because it's a gray area. These aren't traditionally clustered in the sense that I think of a cluster development, which is where you want more density, and that's the whole point of circumventing, if you will, the frontage issue. But now that it's in the scenic resource, we want to preserve the scenic resource. And so, I'm kind of where Tom is. It's like, yeah, this is a gray area for me right now. That's all I got.
Ned.
I guess my biggest concern is if it's treated as a PUD, we may get more density on that lot, which is, we sort of muddled it with ADUs and, whether we do that or it's a subdivision. And I'm just not fully set on the PUD here.
Okay. John Mengen.
I don't have anything to add right now.
Okay. David, anything addition?
I'm good with the layout because for me, clustering doesn't have to necessarily mean tight proximity. It can mean locating homes in a specific area while with the end goal of preserving the remainder of the lands as open. So for me, I like this design because of how much preservation happens to the rest of the acreage. Okay. And I'd rather see one roadway / driveway into the parcel than to see multiples just to meet the regs.
Okay. And I think as far as the PUD and so forth, I'm in the same camp as you, Dave. So I'd like to put a pin in that, and if we were to move this forward, I would suggest that we accept the applicant's description for the time being until or unless additional details are brought forth by staff that would change our mind at preliminary. Is that a reasonable, commissioners? Is that a reasonable? We're not done with public hearing yet either. So, but is that a reasonable approach on the PUD portion of this application?
Good for me.
Yep.
Okay. So we're done talking about PUDs. Sharon.
I just have a little concern of moving sketch forward and maybe would like to see what the applicant feels, because that's when bigger money is spent during preliminary. And if we don't have all the answers at sketch, I would think a continuance, but it's just my thought. Thank you.
Let's get there. So I think the two big issues again that we seem to have had have been the access, the length of the access road, and whether or not we want to consider this a PUD or not. And I think from the discussion we've had is at sketch level, the commission seems to be leaning in favor of putting this as a PUD, but acknowledgement that it is a gray interpretation. And as we know, nothing at sketch is guaranteed. Approval at sketch does not guarantee approval at any future stage. I think that's a discussion for the applicants to have. Let's talk about the length of the access road, so forth. And it feels like we have a pretty big barrier with Public Works. This might be where we want to talk about continuance or moving it forward. And this, I think, would be more for a question to you, Doug. If we were to move this forward from sketch to preliminary with the expectation that the road issues be worked out before it comes back for preliminary, is that too vague for you? Or would you want to keep this at sketch and get more feedback from Public Works and have this back and forth a little bit more?
I have an opinion, but I'd like, the Gudema's opinion too. I feel like there's I'm hearing a lot of I don't knows, and this is a gray area. I feel like a continuance to get a bit more clarity on some of these issues would be good. As Sharon said, moving to preliminary, spending the big bucks on design when we really don't know what we're designing yet. We think we should be designing a shared driveway, but if we do that and the town comes back and Public Works says, no, we wanted a road, then we wasted thousands and thousands of dollars of the Gudema's time. So like I say, and Juanita, if you feel otherwise, but if I'm feeling like I'm not hearing enough clarity in the Planning Commission and staff, that we want to maybe come back in a few weeks, if we can get a more detailed discussion with Public Works to see if we can get on the same page with them with regards to what's appropriate for the roadway. Again, if it's a shared driveway, it can be greater than 900 feet. The length and all that goes away. And if we can convince Public Works that ADUs shouldn't be on the table if they haven't ever been before, then I think, as I said, Aaron Martin has said he's fine with a shared driveway if we could somehow limit ADUs, and we're willing to do that. However, yeah, we're willing to work with staff, put it that way, and Public Works. So
let me circle around to Sharon. Your hand is still up. Do you have a question, or is it just left
Nope,
over?
Sorry.
Okay, so let me circle around to see if there's any more public input, and then we can loop back on this. So does anyone that's on the phone like to offer any additional commentary? Going down through, I see no hands. Okay. Commissioners, I think it is reasonable at this point, as has been noted, there are a lot of gray areas. I do get the feeling that in general the PUD is not as big of a question as maybe we thought coming in, but the access is, the length of the access, and the whole status of ADUs. So it feels to me like the option to continue is probably a good one. And Doug, you've brought that forward, and I don't see an issue with that. What does the commission feel at this point? Does that hurt anybody's feelings if we could continue?
Whatever they want to do.
Okay.
I think that'd be good. Dustin, just real quick, how does this compare to 131 Towers Road, where there are like 5 dwellings there? It's just right up the road. At least from what it looks like. It looks like that on Google Earth anyway.
Is that the Morse proposal that Dave mentioned?
It's an old
There are
state.
not 5 dwellings on 131.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Okay.
John, are you thinking of Douglas Road? Just
Yes, Douglas
Yep.
Road.
Yep.
So what's the comparison with that?
So Douglas Road is a public road. It was designed that way. I don't know the history of that project, but it looks. I believe it was a 5-lot subdivision.
Okay. Sorry, that was it. I'm just
Okay.
It is in the different zoning district as well, which requires much smaller lot sizes.
R1 zoning,
Right.
1 acre minimum.
So Darren and Doug, what I'm hearing is there's questions and work to be done on the access with Public Works, maybe fine tuning, PUD positions. If staff still feels strongly about that, I think we need potentially different documentation as far as why, better, different description of the position. And we probably can use this as an opportunity to address the ADU question, which is seemingly new at this point. And maybe the question is, why is it new and how can it be addressed? Commissioners, anybody feel anything else needs to be thrown into the mix?
Nope.
Doug, do you have enough clarity on that? Does that give you enough to go back and continue this? And you outlined most of those?
As much clarity as I have, yeah.
All right.
We'll keep working on it as we have since November.
We will leave the public hearing open, but I would look for a motion from the commission to continue.
I move we continue.
I'll second it.
Moved by A. John. Moved by Tom and seconded by A. John. And that would be to a date as determined by staff.
Yeah.
All those in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're continued to the next date that you are available, or that you guys are ready to bring it to us.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
2-minute break, Dustin?
2-minute break. Timer is going.
7:54 recess.
I will go to mute so I can make rude noises.
I'm ready when you are, Dusty, whenever everyone else is.
That's it. Who's back on? Everybody back? Oh! That was frightening. All of a sudden, Paul appeared out of nowhere.
Magic. He's like that. He's sneaky.
Commissioners all back?
I'm hungry.
John Mangan's here.
I'm back.
I'm back.
Did you not eat dinner yet?
As long as they're not hangry, it's all good.
Yeah.
David, you back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I guess we're ready. John Mangan, you back? And Josh, everybody?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm here.
Zoom
Alrighty.
758.
We are back on the road. Next item on our agenda this evening is a site plan amendment and boundary line adjustment public hearing for Jeff and Don Lyon doing business as Kana Associates. This is a proposed 8-unit building addition to the existing 4-unit multifamily building. Darren, are you presenting for this?
Yes, I am. Give me just one moment to get the plans back up because they seem to have decided to go to sleep while I took my bio break. All right. So, as you mentioned, this is a 8-unit addition to an existing 4-unit building. This is also a boundary adjustment to combine 2 lots. So let me get the plans back up. I apologize because this one is a larger file, so it runs a little more slowly. So, this is Center Road in the middle of the location map here. Saybrook Road runs to the bottom left of the map. Towers Road runs up to the north. And the site is 2 parcels, one of them relatively large, one a little smaller, both right on Center Road, roughly across from Sunset Drive. Let me zoom to the full picture here. This is looking east is up, north is to the right. So there are 2 existing buildings on these 2 parcels. One is the 4-unit dwelling, and another is a single-unit home with a short-term rental in it. The staff report incorrectly said this was an accessory dwelling unit that was recently changed. So the proposal is to add this 8-unit building to the rear of the existing one towards the frontier and expand the parking area. A gravel wetland would be added. There is a wetland noted here on the plans, but that is a Class 3 wetland. And new street trees would be added. New water and sewer service would be added to this building. And it would be roughly 2 stories. This is within the Business Design Control Overlay District and the High Density Residential District. So it is a 10,000 square foot per unit density. And this meets those requirements by combining the lots and using some of the land from the larger lot to allow for development to happen closer to Center Road, which is exactly what the Town Center Master Plan and ETC Next are calling for in this context. Check my notes here. We also have some elevations. Let me turn those to show what this building addition would look like. So very characteristic of the Essex Center design style with gabled roofs. We have some shingle siding siding on the bottom portion and vertical clapboard siding on the top. There are some porches for some of the units and entrances with covered entrances that really highlight the design of each of those units. And I'll go back to the site plan briefly to point out the applicants have proposed solar carports on some of the parking areas. These would look similar to those at the Alchemist in Stowe. I can share a picture of those if you like. But staff is very supportive of on-site renewable energy generation and also using existing impervious area. There were a couple of other corrections for the staff report. There was, again, the ADU should be a short-term rental for the existing dwelling in the rear. There should have been a date on line 185 for what the police chief stated, should be February 5th, 2021. And on lines 274, there was location should not be plural; it should be singular. Thanks to Dave Raphael for pointing those out. And one other note is that the tree warden, Chuck Vile, took a look at some of the proposed landscaping, the street trees, and noted that they might not be well suited to the site due to wetness. Red oak does not do well in wetness, in wet areas, and it seems like the soils might be compact and wet. They might be well drained, so we suggest some on-site investigation to determine that. And then the red maples are not salt tolerant, so because these are close to Center Road, there's going to be some salt spray from the plow trucks, so we might want to choose something that is salt tolerant, such as Princeton elm or hackberry. Other than that, staff thinks this is a good proposal, and we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Now we'll check with the commission first. Anybody have any questions?
My apologies, Dusty.
Anybody have any questions for Darren at this stage? Okay, now we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening, Paul O'Leary from O'Leary Burke Civil Associates. Mike Dugan is on the line, also the architect, if you have any questions for him. A pretty straightforward project from our end. We're in agreement with the staff notes. We're not requesting any changes in the staff notes or the condition. We're okay with some of the suggestions by Chuck Vile to change some of the tree species out there. And the only other comment I'd have is on the solar carports, are something that we'd very much like to do, but we're not sure whether the economics will work on those or not. So just to let you know that, they may happen and they may not. And that's really all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Questions for the applicant at this point, commissioners? Hearing none, I will ask for someone to open the public hearing. Oh, Ned, you got something?
Yeah, just a quick question. I did see a picture, an array of solar panels, which I understand. Will there be any in the parking areas? Will there be a charging station also?
We're not planning on that right now, Ned. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Seeing no further questions, I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move
to open the public hearing.
A second.
Moved by Josh, seconded by Ned. Sorry, Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Public hearing is open. So if anyone in the public has a question about this application, I will recognize you in a moment, and you can address your questions to us at the PC, and we'll push them to staff or applicant as needed. So it looks like Lorraine.
Hi, Dusty. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And no feedback. That's good. A couple questions. We're neighboring on this property. Design looks great. We don't have any real issues with it. Just a couple questions about, because it is in a wetlands and we struggle with water in the basement, and just wondering if the units are going to have basement, which would be more water displacement. And also, it looks like they're going to leave the road gravel, which is great, but pervious. But I do have concerns about the amount of impervious that might be added and the size of that pond, the retaining pond, or whatever you want to call it.
There will be. This is Michael Dugan, the architect. There will be no basements.
Okay, good. Thank you for saying that. And then also, how do you determine the size of that? Is it called a pond, or what do you call that, Mike?
No, not Mike.
That would be for Paul.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we are adding impervious surface. Our total impervious is under an acre, so we don't require a state of Vermont stormwater permit, but we're greater than half an acre, so we do require a permit from the town of Essex. So we went ahead and we designed a system that fully complies with the state of Vermont regulations. So essentially what it is a gravel wetland.
Okay.
Best description, it's a pond that's completely filled with crushed stone.
Gotcha. So it's a place to to go to instead of
That's
into
correct.
the house. That's
So
it.
it
Yeah.
provides treatment and it provides storage before it's discharged into the existing wetland.
Which is fantastic because it's just, I see where the ETC plan is certainly something that we're going to have to deal with if it moves forward. And this is, right on the edge of that kind of plan development. So, all right, cool. And I love that there's trees there. I really want to applaud the Lions for doing this kind of work and whoever they hired, because it's great to see that. So, and I'm sure we may have some future questions too. We want to make sure that the boundaries are observed, because we did lose one boundary post in the back with the home, and we just want to make sure that we don't lose any more. So anyway, that's all I have to say, but thank you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioners, we'll come back to the table then. And commissioners, any questions or comments at this stage?
I have a comment. If there's no charging stations, it would be nice to have a conduit from the panel out to the parking lot so you could put one in later. But,
We could do that.
oh, that'd be great.
I would like to offer a comment. I think this is both applicant and staff, that I feel that this application was very well documented, very clear, and I appreciate the preparation that was done. I think everybody did a lot on this. Okay, round of questions. No questions. Commissioners, if you have nothing, I'm going to ask to close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
By Josh.
Second.
Seconded by Ned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Public hearing is closed. I'm not hearing any questions from anybody, so is anybody prepared to make a motion at this point? Tom, did I hear you say you wanted to make a motion?
Well,
Sure
I
looked
just,
like it.
I just want. There's no staff report, right? So there's no conditions. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a staff report.
Yeah.
It was. Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong plan thing. All right. Well, are there any conditions that we need to deal with? Next question.
Tom, I would suggest you might want to add a condition that they replace or consult with a town forester or tree warden on street tree selection. Otherwise, we include all the conditions that are needed.
Okay. So I move we approve the proposal with an amendment, another condition to consult with the forester on the tree species.
I would.
I'll second it.
Okay. Moved by Tom, seconded by Shu. So open for some discussion on this. Potentially, you might want to capture in the add a section, new section 4 for Planning Commission findings that just says, applicant was supportive of. I'm not sure the terminology used, Tom, but running a leg out to the parking area for a future charging station.
Yeah, not an actual wire, just an empty conduit. So it's an option in the future.
Okay. And Darren, you had listed some grammaticals at the beginning, correct? So we just include the grammaticals in the. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we have that motion. Tina, do you have something? I mean, we're in discussion of a motion, so what?
There's just some in the chat. So Lorraine.
We're public hearings closed, so. At this point, Tom, would you accept a friendly amendment to add that Planning Commission finding?
Yes, good idea.
And Okay, so that was there. So at this point, we have motion. Is moved by Tom, seconded by Shu, amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We're good. Thank you all.
That makes up for the length of the first application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Michael Dugan. Thank you very, very much. Good job.
Onward now to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the site plan amendment public hearing for Al Senecal doing DBA A and C Realty. This is a proposal for 2 additional 20,000 square foot facilities and other site improvements at 123 Old Colchester Road. Darren.
Yes, thank you, Dusty. So the proposal, as you mentioned, for additional extraction of ledge and 2 additional warehouse buildings at the site, which was previously approved for 1 warehouse building and 90,000 cubic yards of ledge and stone extraction. Staff has no objection to the project in general, but Public Works provided an extensive memo requiring some design changes and details about how the roads would be designed, and one of which would need to be conveyed to the town as an option to take it over. So, given that those were late-breaking changes, we wanted to suggest that the commission continue this application to allow the applicant to address those concerns in a revised site plan rather than trying to capture all of those in conditions of approval. So that is what you have before you, but we are happy to answer any questions about the proposal, and I'm happy to give an overview as well, but we can also save the time for the next meeting.
Do we have the applicant and engineer present?
So hang on a second. I was a little curious about I got a recommendation to continue, right? The memo to open, but we don't really have a staff report. So it's a little, the only thing we have is what's on the agenda. So
seems like it just needs to be rescheduled.
Well, the reason we're asking you to reopen the public hearing is because this request came in late with the staff report, and the abutters notices were already sent out by certified mail. So it would just, that's the reason. If you open the public hearing, it just eliminates the need to have to recertify people. They would get a regular mailing of the next meeting, but it wouldn't be done as a certified, should you so choose that.
So we also wanted to make sure that any public who showed up tonight, not knowing that it was going to be continued, had a chance to comment. I don't know that there are any for this application.
Okay. Tom, you had your hand raised?
I had a couple quick questions. Is there going to be a sidewalk if it becomes a more public road?
I can certainly speak to that if you want, Dusty, and if we want to get into details. Basically, there wasn't a plan for a sidewalk. This is an industrial lot, and we didn't foresee a significant amount of pedestrian traffic. There is a bike path along Old Colchester Road, so there is pedestrian access to the site, just not directly in, except along the road. We can discuss that as an option.
Well, I guess my other question, I thought last time, and maybe it was time before, but not the previous one, but I thought there was some kind of path access through the property.
I will review the last discussion and get back to you on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for pointing that out.
So maybe, excuse me, I find it awkward to just call it and then open the public hearing and then continue. I'm recognizing that we're doing this because of a timing situation.
Well, there might be somebody here that wants to speak to.
Yeah. So I think Darren, if you're prepared, I'd like to, we don't have to go into length. And if the applicant is here and they want to say something, they can, but I'd like to maybe give open the hearing, have you give an overview so we know what we're talking about. We can open the public hearing. If the applicant's here and wants to speak, that's fine. We can open the public hearing and get any questions that people might have on record, and then look to continue. Is that reasonable?
Happy to do that.
Commissioners, is that okay?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Darren?
All right, so as I said, there's sort of two elements to the proposal. One is the extraction of additional ledge. That was approved by the zoning board at their last meeting last week. And the blasting plan and the impacts to extraction of earth resources were evaluated in that. We do evaluate in site plan criteria the restoration of the site. And because this is going to be developed as an industrial parcel with warehouse buildings, there's not a whole lot of traditional restoration to do, but one thing I will add on that point is that the tree warden Chuck Vile recommended that anywhere there's going to be plantings and areas that are not impervious, that soil be filled back to a depth of 4 feet at least to provide for root growth. So that will be the recommendation to the applicants when we reach back out to them for those changes that we've discussed or that we mentioned. Overall, the proposal is consistent with the previous plans. There's been a long history of master planning for this site, a couple of different iterations of a subdivision, and most of which would involve ledge. There's a possibility that a road could be extended up the hill to the east into the agricultural residential district, which is why that stub road is shown there coming off of Old Colchester Road. But that would be for future planning and would require a lot more research in terms of sewer capacity and so on. And the proposal meets all the dimensional requirements. There's plenty of screening from the roadway and from adjacent sites. There's not a lot of landscaping on site, so staff would suggest a little more around the buildings, particularly closer to the loading dock areas. Public Works noted in their memo that there would be a traffic study done in this area this spring and summer, so we will get a better sense of what impacts will be and a better sense of what the proposed impact fees would be. Overall site circulation is perfectly adequate. No concerns there. Parking is more than adequate based on the number of employees in the building as opposed to the floor area. Lighting is sufficient and no spillover. The one change from this proposal compared to the previous iteration is that they would now be using public sewer, so they were able to connect to the force main that was installed for Gardenside Lane. So that's a very brief overview. But as we've discussed, it might be there might be more comments from the applicants who don't seem to be here tonight. So we probably want to review this at the next meeting that we scheduled this for.
Are they in agreement with the continuance?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, at this point, anything for Darren, or can we go right to opening the public hearing? I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Shu, seconded by Josh. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Public hearing is open. So if there's anyone in the audience that wanted to ask a question about this, we obviously will not be getting into depth because we don't have the applicants here. Our expectation is that we're going to continue this application to a date in the future so that we can get more information and have a more complete presentation. But if you have questions, this would be more than welcome to pose them now, and it actually would be in staff's hands as they're doing the reports as well. So I am not seeing anything. There's anything in the chat window? Nothing at this point. So I would take a motion to continue this meeting until to the date as determined by staff and applicant.
I move.
So moved.
Who did that?
Shu.
Shu moved to continue. Tom,
Second.
did you just second it? John Mangan seconded. Sorry. Oh, this is fun. This is like a. All right. We have a motion to continue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. This will be continued. I don't know if we've ever had one of these quite like this before. Next on the docket is the minutes from 2/25. These are the ones that were amended by Sharon. No, she kicked them out last week. So we have the final thing. Does anyone want to offer a motion on the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes of February 25th.
Second? I'll second them. Does anyone want to offer any corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none. All those in favor of minutes as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes carry 7-0. Other business, we had one item, and I forgot to mention at the beginning, but it was just I wanted to clarify communication. Dina, you're still on, which is good. Oh, Sharon, did you have a question?
No, I do have something after you're done. Just wanted
Okay.
to put that out there.
Okay.
So do I.
Okay. So I had a question, and I just wanted to confirm with the shift of the town to the automatic or automated distribution of minutes and not minutes, agendas and so forth. Some of the emails that have gone out have sort of sounded as if you want agendas, you got to get on that mailer. And I wanted to make sure that we were still going to be getting them directly from the staff.
Correct. You'll be still getting your normal packet and everything that you guys typically get from me. That's just for the public.
Okay. That was basically it, just to confirm. Sharon. Thanks, Dina.
Put in your packet, Vermont Federal Credit Union is moving into 1 Carmichael, where the People's Bank was located next to Dunkin' Donuts up in the town center. And they want a sign application, but their color is a little off. Wow.
A lot off, huh?
Yeah, their color was as Dunkin' Donuts, not quite there. So my question, basically, very quickly, shall I have them come in for an application the way we do, or are you comfortable answering this under other business, or do you just not want the color and you want them to adhere to the color chart?
Okay, my opinion, if they don't want to adhere to the color chart, then they got to come pitch the idea to us.
Sounds good.
If they want to adhere to the color chart, then we don't need to see them.
Ditto.
That's fine. Just didn't know if we wanted the full application, so I will have them go through the process, and we will get that scheduled.
Aliso.
Hi. Okay. So I've got Katie Ballard from the Housing Commission here. And the reason why she is here is that we are as you know, the Housing Commission was created recently by the Select Board, and they have been charged with a number of things, including addressing items that are listed in the Housing Needs Assessment, one of which is inclusionary zoning. So we have formed work groups within the Housing Commission to address a couple of different things, but the only one that really affects this group, I believe, is inclusionary zoning and potentially other zoning related items, which of course is one of the reasons why Katie came to one of your last meetings, was because there was that sort of overlap. So the intention behind the work group at this point with inclusionary zoning is to start to delve into, is this a good idea for the town to pursue? or the town and the village in actually. But in any case, so really an objective review of other instances of inclusionary zoning, pros and cons. Anyway, long and short of it, I guess, is what is the planning commission's pleasure? The committees have not met yet. There are two people on the inclusionary zoning committee. Either we can work with the planning commission, who has the ultimate purview over all items related to zoning, or they can advise. I mean, there are a lot of different structures within this, but I guess the question is, does any subcommittee of the planning commission want to work with the housing commissioners on this, in this work group, as pertains to inclusionary zoning, which is what they're tasked with right now?
Okay, I think you were talking subgroup engagement. Katie, did you have a comment? Did you want to add something?
Hi, yes, thank you again. Katie Ballard, Chair of the Housing Commission. I did just want to clarify, we started, as Elisa said, we're very brand new, 5 months in. We're really just figuring out our priorities too. So I did just want to put it out there that part of what the work group is figuring out is inclusionary zoning something that we as a commission want to focus on. So I do just want to recognize that was one of the things that we talked about. So it is possible that this is really, as Elisa said before, like a research information gathering conversation work group at this point. And we would definitely be open to any communication, collaboration with your group. After I came here last time, I definitely heard from the commission clearly that they would love to collaborate and work and support and provide anything that we can to you folks that would be helpful.
So for the commissioners present, is anyone, I guess what I'm hearing is that it might be beneficial to have the commissioners be part of your work group as you're reviewing or discussing inclusionary zoning. So my question to the commissioners is, does anyone have an interest in participating at that subgroup level? We've talked about doing more subgroup work and creating work groups and so forth. So this maybe is like the first opportunity we have to do that. Ned, you're volunteering. Excellent. You raised your hand. That's what it means.
No, I would volunteer, but I'd like to get. It doesn't have to be here tonight, but if someone can get me a little bit of background of where you've been so far, and then what what you want to do right now. I would assume you have some ideas, and I won't tell you any of mine right now because we don't have that much time either. So, yeah, I would volunteer. Thank you.
Okay, and then we literally just have the housing needs assessment, so it's really
it's shaking her head yes, and you're
we're very much at the beginning of this
embryo stage right now.
But they're very excited. I believe it's Mark Redman and Evan Einhorn, and they're very excited to get into this conversation. And I know they would look forward to having someone join them.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sounds like we've got a volunteer to get started, and I think Ned, if as you're participating, if you think there's an opportunity or advantage to having anybody else join in, please, you can report back to the commission ad hoc and wing it. This is cool.
Sharon, do you want to weigh in on something?
I just wanted to know, do they have a date scheduled yet?
No. And we didn't want to do anything before we spoke with the planning commission. And I think this timing is just about right because they'll probably be meeting in the next week to 10 days, I'm guessing.
Perfect. No vacations for you, Ned.
The ice isn't out yet. We've got him. Until the ice is out, we don't have to worry too much about Ned taking off.
Well, I may just head back to Florida, and I have a confession to make to all of you while we have an open meeting. Is I did get back home at 6:30, exactly 6:30 2 weeks ago, after driving 1,600 miles in 2 days. And I really apologize, but there was absolutely no way I was going to sit through what you guys are going to do. I would have been out of order in about 30 seconds anyway.
Oy vey.
Thank you for your honesty.
I apologize. As recorder, I didn't hear that, and I don't know that it's going to make it to the minutes.
Whatever.
All right. Anything else that we need to bring up? Okay. Then let's take a motion to go away.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Seconded by, moved by Tom, seconded by Ned. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi. Opposed. Everett's on board as well. So that passes 8-0.
Got to pull his weight.
Oh, no, excuse me. 7.5-0.